a new horror movie dropped in theaters called Heretic. So here are my thoughts on it. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I talk a lot about movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share what you thought of the movie Heretic over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out once this video is over. Due to the context here, I just got out of the theater. I just got home from the theater from watching this movie, and then I ate dinner, sat down here to do this review because just had to get my thoughts down and talk about this movie. So with that said, let's just get straight into it, talking about the good. And with this one, I will cut right to the chase. I absolutely ate up this film. I thoroughly enjoyed what they were able to do with it. And it's one of the best horror movies that has come out this year. Give a little bit of context of how I went into this movie. I'd seen the trailer. I'd seen the trailers for this movie. They caught my attention just a little bit. It seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. I'd never heard of this movie until the trailers dropped. And I see Hugh Grant is in it, and Hugh Grant, not really the first person I would cast to be in a horror movie, especially as our psycho sort of villain role. But it caught my attention just enough, and then it played out at a bunch of film festivals, got rave reviews, and in fact, last I checked on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. And so I went in with my excitement gradually anticipating for this movie that just like came out of nowhere. But before I saw this movie, I discovered it was from the directors of 65. 65 is a movie from last year starring Adam Driver about dinosaurs that I listed down as one of my least favorite movies of that year. It was awful. I don't enjoy that movie at all. So I was ready to be disappointed, but also ready to be pleasantly surprised, and I sure was pleasantly surprised with this movie. And I like movies like this, where they're very simple, straightforward, and in this case of this movie, it's sort of a lower budget film. The budget was purportedly under $10 million. Very simple, very straightforward, but so effective at what it's going for. And the way it does that, and what makes it so good, factors into many separate different things. First off, the script to this film is very exceedingly sharp. It has a very sharp, clean script where I don't know who wrote this movie, but it's a very, very dialogue-based horror film where it's not reliant on the big, gigantic jump scares, although it has some of those, or the big thrills where people are walking down hallways, although there are some of that. It's most reliant on the dialogue. And the dialogue that's present keeps you fully engaged in the film in a way that I haven't really seen a movie do that in quite a while. The basic setup of this film is that two Mormon missionaries go off and start preaching to people, and they stumble upon Hugh Grant, get invited into this house, and they are trapped. They're basically trying to escape. And the dialogue between Hugh Grant and these other two characters, because they're really the only characters in this entire film, especially from Hugh Grant, the dialogue from Hugh Grant is so captivating in the way he just delivers his lines. And speaking of Hugh Grant, of course, what you have to talk about when talking about this film is the performance from Hugh Grant, because he absolutely steals the show here in every single scene that he's in. And just the way he delivers his dialogue and the way his performance is done, it all just is captivating. It's a very dialogue-based film with not too many scares, but it keeps you fully engaged and is still just as effective as any edge-of-your-seat modern thriller would be. And so much of that, of course, boils down to Hugh Grant's performance, where he's so good in this movie at being sort of like this. He starts off as this totally normal guy, seemingly. And even throughout the rest of the runtime of the movie, he's always talking like he's sort of a totally normal guy while being a legitimate sociopath, or a psychopath in this case, who's trying to sort of play with these two girls' faith. and his performance just delivers just the right amount of, he's kind of normal, but something's not right about him, very clearly. But he makes it seem so normal. And that's what he did so well, is that he gave this performance that could be disturbing, it could be fun and charming at the very same time. It combines all these different elements of what Hugh Grant was able to do. He's really kind of been making a comeback in films lately. He's known for doing a bunch of rom-coms back in the 90s, early zeros. And now he was one of the villains in the Dungeons and Dragons movie. He, of course, was an Oompa Loompa in Willy Wonka from last year. And now he stars in this film, and I think he delivers maybe the best performance that I've seen him in yet. And because of his performance, it adds so much more tension as the movie goes along. The first 40 minutes of this film is basically just dialogue based. But the dialogue builds tension as he kind of forces these two girls to make certain choices. And by the time they make those choices, sometimes it can go down to a bit of a lull, I can admit, where I'm starting to think in the theater, like, man, this is kind of turning generic. Maybe I see where the jump scares are now. They're in a dark room, like whatever. And then as soon as I think it's gonna get super duper generic, it adds some big reveal that makes the audience recontextualize a bunch of the stuff that happened before, and they do some big twist reveals in this film that makes you even more captivated in it. And so for me, this was just one of the most pleasant trips to the theater that I've had in a while. It was such a pleasant surprise. And in an era where we're getting like big budget movies that are appealing to the broadest possible audience, like next week we're getting Red One. That movie has a budget of $250 million with The Rock and Chris Evans. And it just looks like a generic blockbuster. I like when we get movies like Heretic. Smaller, less than $10 million budget, very self-contained in this one location, and just still delivers on everything that a modern horror film should deliver on. From there, let's move on to the bad. And although I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, I don't have a lot bad to say about it. This isn't even particularly like sort of a good or bad thing. It just kind of will play into your mind of how much you enjoy your viewing experience of this movie. I will give a fair warning to people who might be offended by this film. I did the same thing when Longlegs came out earlier this year. Longlegs was a horror movie with Nicolas Cage, that horror movie that came out earlier this year, and I gave a fair warning that people might be offended by it because of the religion that it deals with, and there was a bunch of satanic stuff in Longlegs that Christians aren't going to like. Well, here, there's a bunch of things here that Christians aren't particularly going to like. My personal experience, I am a Catholic, I'm a person of faith, and this movie did not offend me to that extent. Like, I still have the mindset, I know it's just a film, and that does not at all change my mind in any sort of way, shape, or form. But I do give a fair warning, if you do want to see this film, if you are somebody who's into religious horror, this is definitely a must-watch religious horror film. But just if you are somebody of strong faith, you might find some things in here that you might really not like. But just because it's not for everybody does not mean that it's not doing what it's trying to do really well. Because whatever this movie was trying to do, it did it very well. And as a Catholic, I can say I really enjoyed this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Overall, I'll give it an A. But down below in the comment section, that's just what I thought of it. Share what you thought of Heretic over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I will see you in the next one.